Zach, we are back. We are diving into another roster review. We're looking at one of our patrons' teams today, actually. Why don't we hop right on into this one, looking at Devon's team? Zach, why don't you kick it off by telling us the league settings that we're working with, the format we're working with?
Well, first and foremost, this is the first year of the league, right? So no previous record, no max points for last year. 10-team league. It is a super flex, non-tight end premium league. Roster size of 24, taxi size of 2, full PPR, but again, non-tight end premium here. Roster format, start 10, your quarterback, your 2 running backs, your 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 2 flex spots, and 1 super flex spot here. So really important. Super flex, non-tight end premium, full PPR, start 10.
Then let's take a look at this roster that we're working with at quarterback in this super flex league. Mind you, we have a nice bunch of quarterbacks. We have Deshaun Watson, we have Kyler Murray, CJ Stroud, and Derek Carr. At running back, we have DeAndre Swift, Jalen Warren, Kyron Williams, Chuba Hubbard, Joshua Kelly, and Kareem Hunt. Then at wide receiver, we got Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, Brandon Ayuk, Jahan Dotson, Mike Evans, Traylon Burks, Jamison Williams, Josh Downs, Rashee Rice, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and Puka Nakua. That is a mouthful of a wide receiver room. At tight end, we have Kyle Pitts, Sam Laporta, Juwan Johnson, and good old Greg Dulcich. And this is where it really gets fun if it wasn't fun enough already. We have 5 2024 first-round picks. We traded all over the startup draft. We love to hear it. Zach and I love to see that type of behavior. Then we have a 24 second and a 24 fourth. Any plans to get more 24 seconds from the playoff team since it is a rookie snake draft, which is unfortunate. I know I've seen it before. It's not a great thing to have, but at least know your league. And yeah, I'd say get it fixed. But now that people are planning on it being a rookie snake, you got to let people who have already made trades kind of live with that. And we have a 25 first, 2 25 seconds, 25 fourth, and then 2026. We have all of our standard draft capital kicking around yet. So looking at this team and this roster itself with the, formatting in mind, Zach, do you have any thoughts or any specific strategies that you're paying attention to with this roster itself, plus the format we're dealing with? Are you trying to get more depth because it's a start 10? Are you trying to focus on wide receivers because it's a PPR? What are your thoughts here? Are you anti tight end because it's a tight end or no tight end premium? What are your thoughts here?
Well, I just think this is a beautiful wide receiver room, right? This
Love
is
it.
the fact of the matter is you traded for 4 other teams' first round picks. You already own half of the first round picks in this league. What's really interesting and what we are probably going to discuss, and the reason why he said he is targeting second round picks of the playoff teams is because those will be the first picks in the second round. So if you get, say, the league champions second round pick, that is the 201, which in reality is the 111, Bob, because it's a 10-team league. Very interesting dynamic here. I've never seen this before. Really does change a lot. Make sure that the league at the very least is sticking with that.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to be targeting competitive teams' second round picks, you have to ensure that in the draft that those are indeed early second round picks, that you don't get screwed by a rule change that should the rules are the rules now. I would definitely agree with Bob. Try and change them in the future, but try and take advantage of it now.
Yeah, definitely a lot, because I've seen the mistake made by newer dynasty players who just leave it standard rookie snake draft out of the box. It's a lot of people just make that mistake. Oh, the startup draft was snake. Let's make the rookie draft snake. That's just not how it should work. It should always be a linear draft. Give the worser teams more opportunity to build up their roster and make it harder on the good teams already to continue to make their team just a powerhouse with such a high value second round pick. But yeah, definitely make sure that's concrete for another year before you start trading for every, competitive team's second round pick. And if there is a change made, let it be in that 2026 when all the picks are untouched at that point. That's when you want to, make that rule change be enforced so everybody has time to adjust. But yeah, this is definitely a fun wide receiver room, 1000%. Speaking of wide receiver rooms that are fun, and wide receivers that are fun in general, Zach, why don't you touch on your core players? You got 3 great wide receivers. Love every single one of them. Why don't you touch on why they're your core players, and why you're holding on to them throughout this rebuild?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's pretty obviously Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, and Jahan Dotson. I think that this format, of course, obviously favors quarterbacks. However, because it is a 10-team league, it doesn't favor them as much as a 12-team
Mhm.
league does, where you need 24 starting quarterbacks out of 32. Here you need 20 out of 32. So it's a little bit easier to acquire quarterbacks, at least in principle. Wide receivers here are the best bang for your buck in this league. It's not in tight end premium, but it is super flex, but it's only 10 teams. So wide receivers get that full PPR. He did say, I believe you could start 3 wide receivers plus 2 flex spots. That's 5
Yep.
potential starting wide receivers every single week. I love this wide receiver room. We'll talk about some changes I'll make, but I even love the youth on this. Like, you're
Mhm.
taking dart throws here with Josh Downs, Rashi Rice, Puka Nakua, and hell, we can even throw Jameson Williams and Treylon Burks as dart throws because you
Yep.
already have a starting roster of 3 wide receivers here. So I absolutely love the position of the wide receiver room here. I didn't put Kyle Pitts on this list because don't really love the Kyle Pitts situation just because of the Arthur Smith mentality of that team, but because it's non-tight end premium, it's not going to make a big difference if you have like Kyle Pitts. And listen, relax, but Hayden Hurst, it's only full PPR. You're not getting 1.5. You're not getting 2 points per catch. So at the end of the day, the difference between those two, which by the way, Hayden Hurst scored more points last year, is not going to be a whole lot.
I'm going to let the comments calm down before I get into my points. So I also have the Ohio State wide receivers with Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. Big fans of those players. I think both those guys are set to pop off this season. I do have Kyle Pitts. I'm not opposed to moving him. I think there's a big discussion to be had on him being worth moving right now. We've been saying it actually this whole offseason about that Kyle Pitts is pretty worth moving. And even at the start of last offseason, when everybody was propping him up as a Travis Kelce value if he was 21 years old or whatever the case is, however old he was last year. Can't remember off the top of my head. I apologize. I do have Kyle Pitts. I don't hate Jahan Dotson. I love him. I'm not moving him. Not looking to move him off this team. My only thought process is that I'm not going to be married to a wide receiver who I think is a wide receiver 2 at the end of the day, but I could use to tier up at some point to be, in a 10-team league, albeit a start 10 with a ton of wide receivers you can start. Somebody I could launch pad off of to get to a better wide receiver at some point. But like I said, I'm not moving him, not looking to move the guy. I love the player, love the talent, believe in a lot of things for Jahan Dotson. So I don't have any issue with you keeping him and holding on to him, Zach. So with the core players in the books, looking at this team, where is this team headed, Zach? Is this a competitive team now in need of a small retooling? Is it a full rebuild? Are we already in that rebuild? Are we kind of gearing towards something that we started in the startup draft? What does this team need to focus on to get from where it is, point A, to point C, which is championship?
Well, yeah, listen, we talked about this in one of our previous videos where if this is the strategy I'm using in the startup, I'm not really fully expecting to compete the first year. And you definitely know that when you draft Kyler Murray, because it's a potential he doesn't even play this season. So for me, this is clearly a 2024 build and one that can be very, very good because for me, you really need to fill that running back position out. But that's not something I'm necessarily looking to do at this very moment because I want to get the longest out of those rookie contracts that I can. There is one running back I'm going to target. We'll talk about that in a little bit. We're going to need, I think that in the offseason next year, we're going to need to see how we feel about this quarterback room. What's the situation with Kyler Murray? How did CJ Stroud look in his first year? I'm trying to move off Derek Carr as soon as I can, especially with this team. Derek Carr is not a piece that I see helping me win a championship in 2024 or 2025. But I love where this team's at. This team could compete for an outside chance at a playoff spot. Again, it's only 10 teams. So if 6 teams make the playoffs, more than half of the teams in the league make the playoffs. So you have a shot. Let's see how that goes the first few weeks and then make our moves, whether we're trying to acquire competitive team second round picks. But there's definitely pieces on this team that I'm looking to move at a certain point during the regular season here, Bob.
Definitely agree with you on looking to 2024 and beyond. I think that this team, without the running backs and without a great quarterback situation, that's just where we have to look for now. And I think that's okay. First thing I want to look at some point for this team, not necessarily the first thing I want to do right now, is I do want to get some running backs on this team, but I don't want to worry about it like this right this second. Like I said, I'm looking to get running backs on my team in 2024, or I love the target you put on that we're going to get to in a minute. Love that thought process, but I'm mostly looking to take the 2024 cap we have, invest a pick into a quarterback, which is, something that we both want to agree on or fix too, and then use some of the rest of that capital to draft some of the best running backs in next year's class. It's a bonus if we can get Marvin Harrison Jr. as well on this team, another solid stud wide receiver to add to this room. And then we can really have some fun with that quote unquote excess depth we have to build a really strong starting lineup and still have some nice depth to go around with. I want to get more draft capital for trading up in next year's draft, not just drafting players in next year's draft. I want to be able to trade up at will as needed and possibly trade some of those picks straight up for proven talent that can kind of, instead of drafting a rookie in, say, the late first round, that's a wide receiver that needs kind of time to develop into the league. I want to trade that pick for proven talent that's not necessarily an old piece, but some piece that's 2, 3, 4, possibly 4 years into the league that's already established, already going to score me a ton of points that I can rely on in my lineup. And that'll help expedite the rebuild past, a whole season possibly at a position, and then get me into a competitive mode in 2024 as opposed to having to wait a whole nother year. I think this team is set to be something special, but I think it's going to take a full year of kind of cooking. And I think in the meantime, we need to, if anything, work on getting some points off of this roster to ensure our first round pick is that much better. But speaking of things we have to do to make our roster that much better, let's talk potential transactions, things we want to work on to get this team from where it is to where we think it's going. We do have a note here from Devon. Eventually, I would like to target an upgrade at quarterback. I have time for that, though. Looking to possibly buy low on solid rookie prospects that aren't performing on competitive teams. Zach, you got a couple options for some solid rookie prospects that may or may not be performing on competitive teams. We don't know yet. But Zach, why don't you touch on your potential transactions and what you got here looking ahead?
Yeah, first to address his note there, I do agree that he does need to upgrade at quarterback, but the best time to do that is in the offseason because teams, the season played out, didn't work out. They want to try something new. They want to flip this for that. And you've got the capital to be the team, and nobody else does. Nobody has what you have to offer. So that's your advantage there. So you can look at a team that, might have a Joe Burrow or a Jalen Hurts or a Patrick Mahomes or one of these quarterbacks. Say, I got 2 first-round picks for you. You have the advantage that nobody else in your league is going to have. So I would wait to buy a quarterback on this team so we can see what develops with Kyler Murray and see what develops with CJ Stroud. My trade pieces and things that I'm trying to get done on the trade market. Look, I know I said I'm not really trying to buy running backs right now, but there's one running back I do really like. And I got to give you credit. Every year I find one player that I really like, and it's because of Bob. And I start to watch the film, and I see the draft capital and the landing spot, and I'm like, dang, I really like. And last year was Chris Olave, and I'm so happy that I listened to you about Chris Olave. And I have a feeling I'm going to feel the same about Kendre Miller. Same team, I understand that, but different position. I love Kendre Miller. I don't love Kendre Miller for 2023. I love Kendre Miller for everything after it. He fits your timeline on this team. Really, the way that I'm approaching running backs now in Dynasty Fantasy Football is I want to buy the rookie contract. That's all I can control at this point. We cannot control what's happening with the running back market. We don't know if it's going to change. We don't know if the NFL is going to do something about it. What can I control as a dynasty owner? I can control those first 4 years. If I can do that with a rookie running back, I'd like to get one of those every single year from now on. This year, I really like Kendre Miller. And another reason I like Kendre Miller is because I think you can buy him kind of low right now. I did put on this trade list Jamison Williams or Mike Evans for Kendre Miller and a 24 second. You can make that a 25 second. You got a lot of draft picks already, but that's kind of maybe you're targeting one of those competitive teams. You get that early second because it's a competitive team second. Either or, Jamison Williams or Mike Evans. You have so much depth at the wide receiver position, you don't even need Jamison Williams. Okay? Yeah. I'm not saying Jamison Williams is not going to be good. I'm just saying you don't need him. And if you can buy a running back in the first year of his rookie contract who has all the it looks like he's going to have a lot of opportunity in that offense, I would do that. Another trade I have is Mike Evans for 24 and 25 second. Might not be able to get that done. More so now than in the middle of the season. You might find a team desperate enough in the middle of the season, but I would settle for a 24 second and third round pick here. I just think you need to kind of diversify the years of your draft capital. You have so much already in 2024. I don't want to have like 5 first round picks, 5 second round picks, and 5 third round picks. I want to have some of that draft capital spread out. Handcuff running backs. You have a lot of them on this roster. We can consider DeAndre Swift a handcuff running back right now. Jalen Warren, Kyron Williams, Chuba Hubbard, Josh Kelly, and there is Kareem Hunt, who I expect at some point is going to be a handcuff running back. Yeah, it's basically 6 handcuff running backs on this roster. They're not going to serve you any purpose in winning your league unless next year you're trading for the primary running back. You're trading for the Najee Harris or the Cam Akers or whoever it may be. We don't even know if Cam Akers will be the primary running back there. But those handcuff running backs don't serve you a greater purpose right now. Can I get a 24 or a 25 third for one of them? Can I get – I know everyone loves Jalen Warren. Like, who cares, man? He's not going to do anything for you in this league. He's a great prospect if it's like start 12. I'm starting 5 wide receivers in this league. I'm sorry. I'm not starting running backs. It's full PPR. And then last but not least, this one hurt my heart a little bit. But Bob, am I the Dynasty Rewind Michael Wilson guy? Has that been me?
I think you were probably the first one, not worst one. I apologize. One of the first ones to be on him as vocally as you were, but I was the highest grade on him.
Yeah, I didn't have a grade, but once I saw the landing spot, I'm like, ooh.
Yeah, I liked it too.
6'3" wide receiver with a whole bunch of 5'7" wide receivers. Let's go. So let me see if I can get some Michael Wilson for Greg Dulcich. Not a tight end premium in the league. You don't need 4 tight ends. I don't think you're going to get much for Juwan Johnson. It's a little early on Sam Laporta. Let's see what happens there. He may be your starting tight end in the year. So can we move Greg Dulcich, who the arrow's been pointing down a little bit because of the Adam Troutman situation? Let's see what happens in Denver. But a lot of people do like Greg Dulcich, and not as many people like Michael Wilson as much as me. Find the me in your league. Well, actually, don't, because I won't trade you Michael Wilson. I won't trade you Michael Wilson. So, but yeah, I'm trying to target Michael Wilson on this team so he can be one of my depth wide receiver pieces.
Yeah, I like the move. I do struggle with if people are on the up and up with Greg Dulcich, if they're going to be willing to make that move. Otherwise, I agree with all the moves 100%. Handcuff running backs, get them off your roster. They're not serving you any purpose. They could do something for those teams. Happy to move them for 25 thirds. Call it fair value at worst at this point. Mike Evans, I have a similar deal for Mike Evans as well. Moving a 24 second and 25 second, or moving him for 24 and 25 second. Agree 100%. Diversifying some draft capital a little bit. Let's get some into 2025 one way or another. And I love Kendre Miller. You touched on it right at the top of your point. With him, I was a big fan of him as well. He was my running back 3 with scouting grade in this class. So big fan of Kendre Miller here. Getting into my trade targets, most of the ones that I want to move right now or sooner rather than later, guys who I just don't think are going to be super valuable beyond the point of your competitive push. I don't think Mike Evans is going to continue to be great after this season. I think he probably has an okay enough season this year to be viable for a competitive team. That's why I'm willing to move him to a competitive team. DeAndre Swift is a guy I'm looking to move as well. Looking to get a 24 first. I'm trying to get a 25 second on top of it as well, because I know there are some people out there who are banging the drum right now for DeAndre Swift to have 70 some catches this season and 1,000 rushing yards and whatever the case is. I know there's people out there that think he's going to do this. I'm not a believer. I don't believe in him beyond this season. He is in a contract year as well. I'm not dealing with it. I'm not dealing with a contract year running back, or rather a soon-to-be free agent running back, because I don't think the Eagles are looking to sign him. To circle back a little bit on Mike Evans, some moves I'm looking to do. I'm happy to get a late 24 first for him. Give me that 24 second, 25 second, or even give me a 25 first and a 24 or 25 third for the guy. Let's kick out that pick a year. Let them maybe not be as good next year. Maybe that pick ends up better in 2025 than it will in 2024. Who knows? Play the roulette game, if you will. But either which way, we got enough picks next year that, also stacking some picks into 2025, what that does for us is it gives us more ammo for filling our roster out via trade during the 2024 season. And that's something you have to think about, that you're going to have a war chest when it comes to competing in that year. And when you have that lined up, you're going to be a tough team to beat already with the lineup you have. But with the adjustments you're able to make throughout the season to add more players to that roster, you're going to be close to untouchable unless you make boneheaded moves and trade one of these picks for Trey Lance right now or something like that. Not to call out a guy that was kind of out of pocket, if you ask me. But the last move I'm looking to make, not now, but at some point, to get off of a quarterback. There's going to be a quarterback need some point in the middle of the season. A competitive team is going to want in on a quarterback. You are going to be ready, willing, and waiting with Derek Carr in the wings. You're going to send along a 25 second-round pick, maybe the one that you got from the Mike Evans deal or the DeAndre Swift deal you made earlier. And you're going to go for a late 24 first, and you're going to get real greedy. You're going to put the screws to this guy and target a late 25 first, supposed late 25 first as well. It's a reach on value. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's not. This is a quarterback who I think every single year we see Derek Carr tank in value over the offseason. The second the season hits and he's playing games, his value's back to where it should be as a quarterback 2. And I don't know if you get that. If you just get the 1 first and maybe a 3rd and you don't send a 2nd along with it, I'm pretty happy with that too. But I want to get more capital on this team for the needs of putting yourself in the position to draft Caleb Williams next year, draft Marvin Harrison Jr. next year, draft those top 3 running backs if you're able, and then trade the rest of these picks straight up for proven vets that expedite the rebuild process, or use these picks to use as a launch pad off of our current quarterbacks or wide receivers as well. What's a first in Treylon Burks going to get you next year? What's a first in Jamison Williams going to get you next year? How about a first in Kyler Murray? That's getting you into a top 8 quarterback level more than likely, as long as he's not replaced in the draft or thrown to the wolves by then, which I think Kyler Murray is good enough to be playing quarterback somewhere. He might not be playing with the Cardinals, but I'm not going to get into that speculation. I think he's going to be just fine next year. Or you put it on top of CJ Stroud. With all these picks, it's not just about making rookie picks with them, especially when you're looking to turn the corner and compete. You want to also keep in mind that with each pick you have, you don't have to draft a rookie. You can make a trade out to a vet, use one of these picks to pair with one of these players to tier up, or you can trade straight up for a proven vet that's 2, 3, 4 years into the league that's going to be more reliable than drafting somebody like Troy Franklin, who I love, or a Malik Neighbors, who Nate really likes. Trading one of those picks for a proven commodity can end up being proven to be more viable for you down the road if you want to compete in the next season. But Zach, we got to get into some closing thoughts here. Close this thing out. We have some crazy moves to make. I think this team is headed places. I think this team is going to be a formidable roster in a couple seasons. Just after this one, even, I think it's going to be in great shape. Zach, what are your closing thoughts? Final opinions of this roster. What do you got for us?
First and foremost, congratulations on your first inchworm. Great job. I mean, killed it. When you're doing this strategy, you kind of got to punt running backs because you're taking a year off, right? And as we said, running back, the shelf life is incredibly short. So fantastic job. Another thing I want to mention here, this is a little bit different than what we normally talk about, is make sure that your league, their dues are paid for 2024. Because you have half the league's first round picks.
That's a good point.
What I see in this situation, what I see in this situation a lot is people have not paid for 2024, and they'll just trade their picks and then they'll leave the league. They didn't win the league. They don't have their own draft capital. They don't have any money invested. Why would I stay? Why would I pay? Make sure that your league is on top of this, and it might be up to you to be in your commissioner's ear about it. Because right now, half the league has forfeited future assets to play for now. So make sure that your league is covered. But yeah, I this is a phenomenal build. I love this wide receiver room.
It's a good start.
I think what a great job. Like that, to me, is the position you want to secure. More specifically in a 10-team league where quarterbacks are a little bit more available. I want to secure wide receivers more than I do quarterbacks. And you got a young quarterback. You got CJ Stroud. See how that turns out. You bought low on Kyler Murray. Let's see if that pays off. But phenomenal job securing this wide receiver room. Like Marvin Harrison would be nice on this roster, but do you need him? No. You might want to go. Yeah, you don't. You might want to go for Caleb Williams or Drake May next year because this is a beautiful young talent at the wide receiver position. In the scoring values that most. It's a PPR non-tight end premium league. I love this build. Great job. This is the blueprint for the inchworm strategy.
Yeah, I think it's a blueprint for just a year one punt in general. I mean, you've set yourself up with first round picks next year. You've secured a position group that we have always said we want to build around on this channel. And for your dynasty leagues, you want to build around wide receiver. You touch on a great point, touching on quarterbacks that just aren't as hard to come by in a 10-team league, albeit a start 10 super flex. But he even has a note here that he was kind of punting quarterback and the value just kept falling to him. So he ended up drafting him almost gun to his head. And it's just like great work. The fact that, I know, Zach, you're not a huge on Deshaun Watson, but Deshaun Watson, who is by market value a top 10 to 12 quarterback, Kyler Murray, who's still a top 15 quarterback despite having the injury to come back from and a terrible roster to play with, CJ Stroud, who's another top 20 guy, arguably top 15. I don't know where he lands exactly off the top of my head. And Derek Carr, who's a solid piece for a competitive team, not necessarily for you, but great room, quarterback room that you can work off of. Great draft capital to work with as well. Wide receiver room, even Kyle Pitts, Sam Laporta, great grouping there. You have a great 1 and 2, in my opinion, at worst. And then to have all this draft capital that, like I said, you don't have to use to draft rookies with. You can use this draft capital to go and get, whatever veteran you can get with it. If you decide to move off the 101 for whatever reason next year, you can get a haul for it. You'll be able to do it just like you were able to this year. Don't be set on drafting rookies like we've discussed. Use these picks one of several ways. Draft the best players at the pick, trade out for a veteran, or use that pick to tier up your Treylon Burks, Jameson Williams, Kyler Murray, CJ Stroud, whoever it may be. Trade for a veteran running back who's just not being valued appropriately right now. Like this last season, you could have traded a mid-round pick for Najee Harris straight up, and that was deemed fair value. You could trade a later first for Ramondre Stevenson, which I would still be fairly interested in doing. Either way, keeping all this in mind, you've done a great job building this team, and this is a roster that I can very confidently say is well on its way to a championship, if not in 2024, and probably in 2025. This team is going to run the league for a good long bit, I think, provided nothing outlandish goes off the rails here. So kudos to you, Devon. Shout out to you for supporting this brand, picking up one of these audits, and supporting us through Patreon as well. Patreon.com/Dynasty Rewind. If you want to get one of your roster reviews or one of your rosters reviewed, you can check that out. Payhip.com/Dynasty Rewind. The links for both of those are in the description box below. Patrons get an amazing 20% discount every single month, or 10% depending on the tier that you're in over on Patreon. So you can save a bunch of money there. Basically, you sign up for a month, you get that money right back by going to PayHip and purchasing a roster review. It will help you out. It might not make it on the channel, but either which way, Zach, this was a blast. This is going to be it for us, though. We will see you in the next one. But until then, I hope that y'all have a good one.